Good evening, everyone. Namaskar. On behalf of Parichay Foundation, Raise Foundation, and Karma Foundation, I welcome all of you to this webinar. COVID-19 pandemic has impacted the life of each one of us in every part of the globe. And we are currently facing a global health crisis that is upending people's lives, infecting the global economy, and spreading human suffering. But this is much more than just a health crisis. It is a kind of social, economic, and human crisis that calls for solidarity. And the COVID-19 outbreak affects all segments of the population. You know, the invisible coronavirus does not differentiate on the basis of the socio-economic status, religious dogmas, or political ideologies. In fact, on any other kind of discrimination. But we have observed that the coronavirus is particularly detrimental to members of certain social groups. And therefore, it is our moral responsibility to provide some kind of extra support to these people. And therefore, we have been organizing this series of webinars to understand the problems faced by different groups of people and to look out for solutions so that the civil society and the government can work together to mitigate this crisis. And before we continue the session today, I would request all of you to observe a silence of 2 minutes in to pay our respect to the braveheart soldiers who lost their lives protecting the integrity of our nation. So, and also to pray for world peace. A silence of 2 minutes, please. I hope the situation at the border gets better soon, and now we will come back to our core discussion. And today we will be discussing about the impact of COVID-19 on a particularly vulnerable segment, that is our senior citizens, the silver generation. And while we do understand that the current priority right now is to somehow fight this global pandemic and also to look out for ways to revive the economy, but we cannot turn blind eye to the suffering of our elder population. And therefore, today we will be talking about this. And without any further delay, I would like to introduce all of you to our chief speaker, Shri Amarendra Khatwaji. He is a former ambassador, a former secretary, special assignment with Ministry of External Affairs, former Director General, Indian Council for Cultural Relations. He has held various positions, various important positions throughout his diplomatic career. But more than that, I think he's the most energetic and the most wonderful person I know. And for me, personally for me, Karma Foundation, Parichay Foundation, and Rosalind, he has been a pillar of strength to all of us. He's our motivator, a guide, a philosopher. So please welcome Shri Amarendra Khatwaji.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. Before we talk about this important subject, that is coronavirus or COVID and elderly in India, there are a few things I must say. One, we have almost 350 to 400 million elders. The equation is almost 50-50 between urban and rural. There are large number of poor states. There are large number of slums. And the 47% rural areas have lots of elders. Second, information is premium. Everybody gives lots of information during coronavirus time. That's not enough. What we need is exact information for the exact segment. Third is elderly face basically three types of problems. One, psychological. Two, socioeconomic and financial. Three, medical. When I'm talking about psychological, as we understand, among the urban elderly, lots of them live alone because their kids have gone out. Oh, should I stop? Please let me know where I have to stop.
You're audible, sir.
Yeah. Many of the urban kids, for search of job, for mobility, for brain drain, they are away from the parents. Most of the elderly live alone. In the rural area, similarly, people go for contract work, contract labor, earn money and send to the elderly. So these elderly people now, they are deeply into psychological trauma because they live alone. And all the time they are listening to the trauma of spreading pandemic. Second is socioeconomic and financial. When we are talking about COVID, we know there is no vaccine. Two, whatever facilities are available, whether it is public sector or government sector, they are very costly. During the same time, we have to manage with a large number of economic activities for which financial support will be required. Third is medical. When places like Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, we are facing problem. Government is like scrambling to create facilities for treatment of coronavirus or the pandemic. Think about the large number of elderly who have this psychological and socioeconomic problem and live in different parts of India. How do they reach the medical support, whether it comes from the government or private sector? Now, next part I will come. What is the role of the society and government to help them? The roles basically when I'm talking about role of the central government and state governments. I'm talking about role of the NGOs. I'm talking about role of individuals and family members. Each of these segments have specific role to support and not only support psychologically or financially or in the medical matter to understand the problem, because already global medical fraternity has said that coronavirus or COVID is fatal mostly for elders. This fear has already set in. Therefore, say a simple thing like that. Why cannot we, government at center and states, as well as NGOs, make available simple literature in easy and regional languages to the elderly in different parts of India and the states? What I'll do, let me stop here, let the other panelists speak, and we'll come back. I hope like this is basically laying down the principles, the whatever is the problem. Let's all discuss now and we'll come back.
Sure, sir. So, like Khatwaji has suggested, the importance of right information to the right people. So we move on to the next speaker today. And I'm glad that we have a very, very special guest with us today, right from Singapore, Shri Srinivas Rai ji, who is of Indian origin and has resided in Singapore from last 60 years. Originally hailing from UP, Mr. Rai has been practicing law in Singapore from last 50 years. A former member of parliament, he has been instrumental in piloting the Maintenance of Parent Act and constitutional protection for the Indian minority in Singapore. I'm really grateful to you, Ba, for joining us today. Over to you, please.
It's my pleasure. Let me first introduce Singapore. Singapore is a small city-state south of Malaysia. We have, unlike India, we have huge senior citizen. India is a young nation when you compare to Singapore. The problem with the senior citizen is most of them are not adequately equipped with the computer knowledge. Now the government and the community, students, community, social workers are trying to teach these people how to operate their own mobile phone, laptop, And it is very gratifying that the people, the older generation, are very positive. A very good sign that they are very positive and they're looking forward to fight this a disease that has never seen a dimension for 100 years. We had 1918, just after the First World War, the Spanish flu, but many of us cannot remember it. In Singapore, we are very fortunate. We got a very good medical care, but there's one problem that I would like to emphasize. We have senior citizens who are not equipped. They are living in high-rise buildings. Singapore is basically a high-rise building society. And many of them are feeling a sense of depression. And that I hope doesn't happen in India because we've got a lot of space. We've got a big family network. But what is gratifying that younger people are helping. They are coming forward. Civil servant, university student, high school student, providing grocery to the seniors. Many seniors live alone. So I think it is very, very encouraging. And I want to share with you a Singapore experience. We have a law. If a child, son or daughter doesn't look after the parent, there's a law that he can be hauled before a tribunal, which doesn't happen. It's very salutary people, out of respect, out of fear, looks after the senior. So I leave any question that you may have asked, and I'll be prepared to answer.
Can I answer this? Hello?
Yes.
It's not learning from any country. All best practices must be learned by each country because this pandemic, nobody knows how it came, when the vaccine is coming. Each of the society is in chaotic situation. Therefore, the best practice from any country, including Singapore, we must learn. But what we should learn, say as you said, one is regarding like responsibility, duty of the family to look after the elderly. This kind of thing must be strictly practiced in all societies, even if it is required legally. Then second is the facility aspect. Like in Singapore, so for example, providing facilities of like medical facilities, transportation facilities, logistics facilities to the elderly during the crisis time is also remarkable. That also should be followed by us.
But with the breaking up of the traditional social networks, and like you have also mentioned that a lot of children are staying away from their parents these days. So what is the solution to that? How do we cope up? How do the elders cope up? And especially when we talk about Delhi, we have the facility of home deliveries and such, but in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, people are actually going through a very bad phase. So what do you think is the solution for that?
Exactly like when I said the central government and state government have separate roles here. So India is rural India, India is urban India, India is poor India, India is rich India. This diversity, the unity in diversity, needs support base to be created all around the country. And second is the NGOs. The role of the NGOs are very important. Like when we are talking about social activists, NGOs and all, this kind of pandemic is ready-made for them to reach out to people who cannot be reached out by anyone else because they are working in the grassroots level. And third is the neighborhood principle. Those three, I made it clear, all these roles must be assimilated to assuage the feelings as well as to extend support. Three, see what financially they can do. And fourth is they also can work as a network between government as well as the people at the grassroots or the elderly in the rural areas.
Right. So we shall continue the discussion later. I would like to invite our next speaker. First, we'll finish first round and then we can continue with the discussion. So I would like to invite our next speaker today, who hails from a royal family of Odisha. She's a social crusader and a music director. She has been helping the elderly people through her music therapy. So please welcome Ms. Deepti Devi ji. Ma'am, your mic is switched off, I believe. You'll have to switch it on. Now we can.
Firstly, thank you for inviting me. It's very essential that in today's world we discuss this. So I feel supporting and protecting older people is everybody's business. Of course, the government should look into it and other authorities to intervene into older people's needs. Elderly should be treated with respect and dignity, especially during these trying times. People go to the villages to help the elderly. There are so many factors. There may be an old lady living just next door, but due to village, maybe a personal enmity or something like that, they won't tell you that there is someone out there. So it is up to those people who go and reach out not to leave anybody out. And regarding meeting your grandparents and keeping them happy, physical distance is different from social distancing. Children, grandchildren can ring them up, keep them happy, make them feel loved, make them feel wanted. I think that's basically the duty. And elderly, especially during these days, COVID-19, they tend to get anxious about their loved ones. And they want to reach out, they want to be with them. It is, I don't say it's a sense of duty, but it should come from within for the children, for the grandchildren, to ring them up every day and make them feel good. Thank you.
Ma'am, if you can put some light on how the music therapy can be used at this time to avoid the psychological impact of this pandemic.
Yeah, actually, I know many elderly people above the age of 70 call me, and they like to listen to music. Music therapy, in the sense, it helps to heal if they're on medication, and mentally they are happy. Music makes everybody happy, and it helps them to heal. It helps blood pressure to come down, and it definitely helps heal. And even in these old age homes, I've been going there, and they love to dance. It really makes them very joyful, and that is where I say it's a therapy. It assists medical. It is not directly a medicine, but if any medicine, like if it takes a long time to heal, it will take half the time if the person is happy. And music definitely plays a vital part in making, especially the elderly happy. It depends, whether it depends on what type of music. Some people may want to just hear instrumental music. Some people may just want to meditate. Some people may want to hear bhajans. It depends on what the background of the person is and what sort of music they're inclined to hearing. But music is a therapy.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We have some questions for you, but we'll take them at the end. And now I will introduce our next speaker to all of you. We have Miss Vaishali Makkarji. She is a social worker and founder trustee of Arushi, and she's been working from last 20 years for senior citizens, particularly from the underprivileged segment. So please welcome Vaishali ji.
Good evening. And thank you very much, Dhwani. And I'm so honored to be amongst such august guests around in this panel. Well, I have been running Arushi for the last 20 years, yes, and working mainly for the urban senior citizens, mainly from the poor class of senior citizens. And we've been providing them with dry ration on the 1st of every month. So we have adopted these senior citizens who are mainly below poverty line, and we have their rehabilitation projects. They paint the Diwali diyas, they do hand knitting and crochet. Yes, COVID has impacted a lot, but since this issue is very close to my heart, I feel that more than the urban poor family senior citizens, is the middle class senior citizens who are the worst hit by COVID, because senior citizens from poor families, whether Arushi adopted or not adopted by Arushi, they're getting pension, they're getting ration from the state government. While the middle class, lower middle class senior citizens, it is very difficult state because they're neither enrolled as pensioners, nor are they getting any ration as such. So they are the worst hit, I believe. They don't have any resources as such to, they right now, they have put whatever resources they had, their jewelry, their auto rickshaw or the e-rickshaw which they have, which they possess, they have already sold that or given it against loan to buy, to get money, to get food in the house. So I feel COVID has impacted middle class senior citizens more than anybody else. And because poor class families, I've told you, and I'm very glad, delighted, it's not a question of numbers for me. We have 55 to 60 senior citizens who we provide ration with. And it's a matter of honor for us that these people are so confident that they will never have a problem. Arushi will definitely provide them with dry ration. So that confidence is there in them. So they are better off. But yes, problem of senior citizens is different at different levels. When I started this organization, all I knew was I was inspired by this movie Avatar featuring Rajesh Khanna and A.K. Hangalji. So A.K. Hangalji's daughter-in-law used to ill-treat him. And I was very young at that time. So that made me think that I have to work for senior citizens because I was actually very close to my grandparents. And I didn't know how to go about it. So I actually took out a newspaper by the name of Virasat, whereby I used to go to senior citizen colonies and go to the parks and talk to the senior citizens to see what kind of problems they are facing and what kind of work can I start with. So Virasat was featuring those senior citizens who started their life from scratch, whether they came from Pakistan without anything, or they were here. So their life was being. I used to mention about how they struggled, and then I realized that the senior citizens for poor families, their problem is that they are finding it difficult to arrange even 1 square meal a day. So I had to stop Virasat, and I started distribution of ration to senior citizens. So we have our own ration cards. So yes, high class senior citizens have different issues. They have all the kind of money, but they're lonely. They have more of psychological problems. Middle class families, well, at that time metro was not there. At that time it was they had a problem of transportation and conveyance, and their children were abroad. So yes, loneliness. But the senior citizens of poor families, they had a problem with surviving. So I decided to be practical, and I'm glad with 1,000 rupees I started Arushi, and today it's a monthly expense of 60,000 rupees. So, but I feel that it's your passion, it's your dedication to your something that is close to your heart that makes you achieve these things. So right now what we are working on is there's most of the senior citizens have started calling me up, बेटा अब नौकरी से निकाल दिया गया है मेरी बहू को, और वो बाई का काम करती थी घर में जाके, अब तो उसको बुला नहीं रहे घर में, अब घर में पैसा नहीं है, अब कुछ मदद कराओ, हमारे बच्चों की नौकरियां लगवा दो. So I am in talk with a few people we are collecting a database now of the people who are looking for workers and the people who are looking for jobs. So we are now collecting a database of those, and probably in a few more days we'll be putting these people, we'll synchronize the whole thing and we'll get them jobs also. So that's all I would like to talk about right now, and probably we can continue with our discussion.
You're doing a great job, Vaishali ji. We are really proud to have people like you in this country, and more power to your work. So I'll take up some questions that we have received. And one question is, how do we guarantee access to vaccine for COVID to all sections of the society, from marginalized sections of the society to the elites? Right now, though we do not have a vaccine, but this is a hypothetical question that whenever we get the vaccine, how do we ensure that it reaches out to all segments of the people?
Once the vaccine comes, how it will reach to the people is not a difficult issue at all. We have for tuberculosis, we have something for malaria, we have different national programs. Automatically, it will come to the national program once the vaccine comes. Like, say, for example, Serum Institute of India, when they produce a vaccine, it becomes so cheap that anybody can afford it. But that is far away. At the moment, what we are talking about, accessibility to good and competent hospitals where beds are available, where quarantine facilities are available, where people can reach easily and get right kind of information. That becomes much more problematic in the rural areas. That we must talk about now, the current situation. Once the vaccine comes, I don't think that will be a big problem.
Yeah, I think more than vaccine, I feel it's we have to tell them, convince them that they have to be very positive in their approach, because when we're talking about willpower, when we're talking about positivity, we are talking about gratitude. We as senior citizens, I think this is the time we have been given time to learn the art of dying now. Art of living we have been, but art of dying is what we have been given time for now. So we should prepare ourselves for everything. It could be anything. I mean, long life to everybody, but then yes, we should not forget that we are not immortal. We're born with immortal bodies. So we have to prepare ourselves mentally for for everything. Vaccine comes, yes, of course, it's going to be a big help. But then uh, I think it's more important to be strong enough emotionally. And that comes for every age group. I'm not talking specifically about senior citizens, because with poor families, senior citizens, these people, uh, they are very used to those struggles. For them, this COVID has not changed their life much. They've always been struggling in their life. So for them, it's not a challenge. It's a challenge more for the people who have been socially very active and going about to parties and going about meeting friends and spending time. I mean, for them, it's like, "Je kya ho gaya?" Life has come to a halt for them. But as senior citizens, yes, there are physical problems they have encountered, medical problems, yes, but these problems were there before also. And they used to, they know it कि लाइन में जाके खड़ा होना पड़ेगा डॉक्टर साहब के पास, और अब तो घर से नहीं निकल सकते, तो मतलब अभी तो डंडा पड़ेगा पुलिस वाले का बाहर निकलोगे तो. So they are comparatively psychologically better off than the middle class, very ongoing social group of people who used to party a lot and go about shopping a lot. For them, it's becoming difficult to take this COVID thing.
May I
think
say
it's
something?
Sorry.
May I say something? Add
Yeah,
to what
sure, sir.
the big problem is, even if the vaccine is discovered, say 2 months, 3 months, the question in India really is how is going to reach that is advantage people in the countryside, even the urban areas. This is a big question that the community has to work. The well-off must take their wealth and share with the poor. There is no other way, because if we don't help them, who is going to help? No other country. Indians have to help themselves. And I think it's very important when I see the plight of villagers without medicine, without food. So I think that India requires a very concerted effort to look after the people who are in the countryside, especially those who have migrant workers who have lost jobs. They have no land, no agriculture base. This is what I think all of us must put our head together and work for the good of the humanity. There is no other substitute. We must be earnest. If we are not earnest, we will lose this opportunity, and posterity will blame us for the blunder we have created.
Maybe we can have some more points from Khatwa sir, because like he has rightly pointed out that we have been pretty successful in giving other vaccines. Like we have been successful in eradicating polio, taking care of the TB. So what kind of role and what kind of social support measures do we put in place so that it reaches out to the most marginalized section?
Both the
Very good
points
point.
they have
That's
made, my predecessor who spoke, they are very relevant. The poor, the marginal, the underprivileged, they need special care. That we must have to note. When the vaccine comes, automatically the national vaccine program will take care of it. It will include global population of India. It will reach, but it will take some time. Till that point of time, what they were talking about, that how do we reach them? How these underprivileged know about this? Who will provide them the facilities? As he said, the rich elderly used to always go to the parties, used to go to the places where everything were available. Now that he's isolated, his psychological problem is much more than the elderly of the very poor or below poverty line poor. All these issues have to be taken into account. But as far as the vaccine reaching masses, that would not be a problem, because National Vaccine Program is one of the most successful programs. It's quoted by WTO anyway.
I have a question. We have been talking about how, like, for youth, we have stopped going to the malls, we have stopped going to the parties, and it is impacting. But I seriously feel it impacts the elderly population as well, because they are used to connecting with each other at a personal level. Though we have virtual mediums with us, we have been taking video calls, we have been interacting with our people continuously. But there's definitely a digital divide when we talk in terms of our elderly population. Imagine a person above 80 who has not lived in the so-called digital age. So what do you think, what kind of impact will that have on our senior citizens, in fact more than above 80 years of age? How do we fill that kind of digital divide? What kind of support we can give to our elderly people in terms of technology?
In Singapore, we are trying to teach the older people how to operate handphones, laptop. Most Singaporeans have smartphones. So the students from the colleges, from high school, university, goes to the home, spend some time cheering them up, at the same time teaching the advantage, whether it's the music, whether it's the news, so they are tuned to what's happening around. This way, previously they were not exposed, now they're learning new skills. And I think it behoves the students in India, especially India is a very young population, the student in university must go out. If they can help 5 people every day, I think we have achieved something. So I think it behoves a parent to tell the children, please go and help. If the children are encouraged, they appreciate it, and so they will help. And India has no lack of talent. India has no lack of sympathy. So I think it's very important for the parents to tell the children, please help uncle next door. It could be just emotional. It could be just a little bit of fruits, which we can afford to give it to them. I think Singapore has learned a great deal, and I'm glad that many people are observing how a small country like Singapore, with no natural resources, we are giving fruits, we are giving vegetables, we are even supplying cooked food. Restaurants are giving food to be distributed. And unfortunately, there are a lot of foreign workers who are in this plight. Migrant workers, you call in India. So my prayer and my suggestion is, please, as a parent, take the responsibility upon yourself, instill in the children values that will help them later in life.
Well, I remember when we were kids in school, we used to have a moral science book with us. And cleanliness, obedience, respect to elders, we are the major topic. I think the government should make it very mandatory now that before they give the 10th or 12th class certification, the children should spend in summer vacations at least 1 month in the village, or make it mandatory for them to serve some social organization. What happens is, even to this day, I get a lot of children coming from universities that they have to apply abroad, they need a certificate, and they are ready to give donation to the organization to get that certificate. This is just not done. I feel that the school curriculum should incorporate this, that they should have a practical marks before the practicals for social work done. And they should prepare a proper field report, and everything. It should be a different topic to each student. Otherwise, what normally students do is they copy the previous year's projects and they submit it. Yaar, marks mil jayenge mujhe. So that thing has to be inculcated. I think moral science books and compulsory education, moral education by serving, whether you serve the Indian Army also, a training, or going to the villages, or spending time 1 month at least in summer vacations. I think that the government should make it mandatory.
Thank you, Vaishali ji. Deepti ji, if you would like to add something more to it.
Moral science definitely imbibes moral values in children. We had moral science books, and every day, the first period would be moral science. Right after school assembly, I was, of course, at a boarding school in Uti, Hazrat Convent, and the first period, what happens is, the whole day, the children think positively, and it's very good, like not only moral science, like during school assembly, the thought for the day, and everything that, that goes around the whole day should be, valued while doing your other lessons and all that, the morals. And what is more important, this should be carried out at home. It should be
True.
carried out at home. These
True.
morals, it's up to the parents also to see that these morals, like school is just a second home, they have to be carried out by the parents to teach the children at home.
Very true.
This is definitely a long-term plan. It will take years to fructify. So I will
Even if the government is not able to do anything at this, at this interval, but yes, I think the parents can. The parents should rather, this positive thought. They should start the day with a very positive thought. I mean, let the children sit over a breakfast, or when they get up, first thing when they get up, right on the bed, they can actually think very positive and thank God for, express gratitude. I think gratitude, prayers, and positivity, I feel these are the three key words that will help you sail through COVID.
absolutely. We have a very interesting question, and that is, did lockdown allow the youth to connect with family better? Since everybody is stuck up at home, so did it help the youth to connect with the elder population better? Khatwa sir, if you could answer that.
No, I'll make one point. All these are extremely good points, but the India we are talking about is many Indias. We have 600 million middle class, 500 million poor, 300 million public sector, government servants, and rich. This is divided into rich and poor and rural and urban India. Therefore, whatever we are talking about, all are appreciable principles, must be implemented. Government must work, state governments must work, NGOs must work, family and parents and kids, they must work. These are basic points. There is no difficulty at all. But the present question which has been asked, whether the kids are connected or the family is connected through the crisis. To some extent, yes. Because the individual problem of everyone is different. So for example, if you are talking about the migrant worker on which I'm working, when they come back from Surat to their village in Orissa, he has no income. His worry is what he is going to provide to his elderly parents. Therefore, instead of connectivity what we are talking about, there is a disconnect. It's a psychological disconnect between the elderly and their children. Similarly, we are talking about upper middle class. The kid is in USA. The kid is in UK, cannot fly back. No flights are there. If it is not emergency, cannot come back. And the elderly parents, they are living alone. See the disconnect. There are lots of disconnect, and psychological disconnect has been created by the pandemic, for which we, the family, the NGOs, and the community, as my Baisaliji said, their role.
Right. Rai uncle, I would like to take your perspective on the same question, and that is how the youth have reconnected with their family during this pandemic, since I think Singapore is a much homogenized society, and how did this pandemic impact the relationship amongst the family during this crisis?
We are quite fortunate. Our children trained by the army when they were boys at the age of 18. So they have a certain sense of discipline. But before even going to that, because many parents, grandparents live together, the children are learning day by day how to look after them. Well, initially it was a bit of a difficult job, but they realized the plight of the elders, and they have come a long way. And Singapore has been fortunate the schools have been teaching values, which earlier was pointed out. The schools have been teaching values, and when they go to army at age of 18, the boys, they have added responsibility to the country and to the community and to the family. So this is a very well set up society. Maybe some people say we're a very regimented society, but I don't mind it. Rather be regimented than to be, indisciplined. So we have no problem with that. The problem that is now we are seeing is how the mental health of the eldest people. This is a big problem because there has been increase in people suffering depression because of isolation, because of lack of facilities. But slowly, when we're opening today, we started opening up, there are signs that things will change for the better. But as I said earlier, we must inculcate the children. Don't blame the children. We owe a duty to give them the value that will help them and help the community and the country. So Singapore has been very fortunate. We got a very low juvenile delinquency, very, very low. And this is no credit to the schools. The school imbibe values, which is lifetime learning, lifetime living. And I am so happy to see at the bus stop, school students helping elderly people to go up. Some of them, even if they don't have money, they give them their pocket money. And this is something I am so happy to note in Singapore. It doesn't happen many parts of the world. So Singapore can be an example to the Indian parents, this thing, because we are financially better off. But the most important, how to inculcate in children. As one of the speakers earlier said, no use passing the exam, you don't pass the human exam, how to treat as a human being, how to behave in the society in a manner that will help. And I think we can tell the children in India to do a little better.
Yeah, we are training our children to score well in their exams, be a medical professional or be an engineer, but we have to actually teach them how to be a good human being first. So that everything else will follow.
Too much focus on marks is somehow creating a problem. And we need to reconnect with the basic humanitarian principles. So I think we have already, we've been discussing from last 1 hour. So I would like to take one final point from all of you, starting from you, Vaishali ji. One final point, one key point from this discussion, one key suggestion from your side.
Well, I think we should all be very positive. And, the problem is that the fear that is there, we are actually radiating fear. So radiating fear, creating vibrations of fear, that is why the whole atmosphere is getting fearful. Let's spread positivity. Let's spread gratitude. Let's pray for humanity as such, whether it's for our soldiers, whether it's for our for the people, for the COVID warriors, anybody who's serving. We should express our gratitude and we should spread vibrations of positivity only. That will actually help change the whole environment.
So staying positive is the key to fight this pandemic. Over to you, Deepti ji, your final take on this topic.
Support older people and their families. See that they have access to proper nutrition, to medicine, all that they need. Even if you can't meet them, see that they get it. And above all, if you can't go there, ring them up daily and show that you care.
Very important point. If you cannot be there, at least give them a call and show that you are there with them. Bao, one final point from you, please.
Well, we will overcome the problem. And I'm reminded Martin Luther King Jr.'s, we shall overcome. United people all over the world must fight this common enemy, and we will win, provided we are determined as a universal society rather than an individual society, Chinese, Indian, European. The humanity must fight this courage, and we will win if we are determined as a one united nation.
We shall overcome. I'm sure we will soon overcome this pandemic. Over to you, Katwa sir, if you can give a final point and summarize the whole
No,
discussion.
you can summarize. My one line is, we have to increase awareness of their social relevance and give them love. That's it.
Giving them love, giving love to our silver generation. That is a very important thing. And I'm thankful to all of you, all our esteemed speakers, Shri Amrendra Katwa ji, Shri Srinivas Rai ji, Deepti Devi ji, Vaishali ji, for taking out time from your busy schedules. I'm really grateful to all of you. And this was a very, very enlightening session. I'm also thankful to all the people who joined us today at such a short interval. And before I close this session, let us pledge to strengthen the social system and show solidarity during this challenging time. Let us pledge to stand for our elder population, to stand for our senior citizens, and to be a strength to them at this trying time. Thank you so much, all of you. Thanks for attending this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thanks a
It was
lot.
a real pleasure. Thank you.
Same here.